In this episode, we sit down with Josh Taylor, the everyday athlete. We discuss the reasons why mental illness is such a problem in today's society, but Josh takes us through things that we must do every single day to make sure that our mental health is optimal. And he takes us through the 5 steps, the 5 things that we've got to do every single day to make sure that happens. This episode is not to be missed. I hope you enjoy it. Josh.
Morning.
Thanks for joining me, mate. So, you're known as the everyday athlete. What does an everyday athlete look like to you?
An everyday athlete to me is not just sports. It is how you can be the best version of yourself and perform optimally in whatever your chosen field is. Now, that could be an elite level athlete. We'll work with elite level athletes in multiple different sports. But it may be the 9-to-5 office worker. It may be someone who is wanting to perform the best, whether it be cognitive function, whether it be physical health, mental health, and essentially all aspects of what I call performance-based. So looking after the 5 pillars. So physical, so your physical health, your mental health, but then you've got your nutrition, rest, and sleep. Them are the 5 fundamentals that we will look to prioritize in order to be the best version of yourself, to be optimal in your performance, but also your recovery as well. Because recovery is a huge part of what the massive picture people miss. People focus on the physical side of it, or let's talk about exercise, but then you can't pour from an empty cup. So people neglect the recovery side of it, whether it be sleep, whether it be rest, and they almost see it as like a weakness, where actually you can only perform as well as you can recover. So it's optimizing them 5 sort of fundamentals for us in order for you to perform at your best day to day. And people don't actually know what their best is, which we'll get onto as well, where what is anyone's best, what limits do we have, no one actually really knows. But it is summed up very, very simply, is progress over perfection. Perfection is not attainable, but if we progress day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, we are going to be able to perform better in whatever it is we choose to do.
I love that. And that's so, in my opinion, that's niche, because a lot of online coaches, and you are an online coach, they are specifically aesthetics and helping people get into a certain shape in terms of their physique, but maybe neglect the recovery, the sleep, the mental health side of things, which is I love. Because this podcast is about helping people implement daily habits, implement different lifestyles to optimize their mental health in the most positive way. So, yeah, I love that there's all those different pillars within your coaching, because I think it obviously would help a lot of people. And I know that you're working with a lot of people. Yeah. So, how long have you been on this journey of coaching for?
So I came out of university I studied sports science at university. And during my time at university, I've always been, and I say borderline, but borderline obsessed with how far the natural human body can go. What are we capable of, and we still don't know. But then my background being more, I was a rugby player, played part-time professional. Soon realised, that was rugby league, yeah. Soon realised that I wasn't going to make it as a full-time professional, which was the ultimate goal at the time. Yeah. Again, at the time, the next best thing was to go down the coaching route. And if I couldn't play in it, could I work in it and assist these individuals to be better athletes? So during my time in university, I spent my placement at Huddersfield Giants with the S&C staff, the strength and conditioning coaches there. And then, I guess, right place, right time. Did a lot of intern work, sort of unpaid, whilst at uni, went back into my 3rd year at uni. And then a job came up. So again, right place, right time, but a job came up as the head of academy. And because I'd worked with the academy in my placement as well, I finished university in June of when I was 21, so that was 2012, and dropped straight into that role. They asked me if I wanted it because I'd been involved in that system. So I'm now 33, so I've been involved for 12 years. Now, I stayed predominantly in rugby league I came out of it full-time in sort of 2017. So 8 years ago, I set up my company, ran that alongside for a little bit. And then my goal was always to bottle up and package up what I'd learnt in sport and what I had access to in sport. So access to other S&C coaches, physiotherapists, doctors, nutritionists. And how could I then deliver that to members of the public, everyday people, which where the everyday athlete came from. So because you have such access to these high level individuals, that I know heaps of people who are very successful in different walks of life who train at high levels who would want access to them sort of people. So fortunately I've built a community but also a network inside sport of elite level nutritionists, physiotherapists, to where we almost run sort of referrals out to these individuals as well. So any client that comes in naturally will get access to nutritionist, some case a psychologist, and essentially anyone who offers more than I can offer just on my own. And that to me is the business side of it. Because again, if you go back to the,
Love that.
you know, Richard Branson stuff, you know, if you should empower people that are better than you at your job or better than you at a certain job. So that's then obviously leverage for me, and that helps me. If I'm around these high level people in nutrition, other physios, other S&C coaches, and you know, direct to performance, then naturally I'm going to get better at my job as well. So it was essentially, it started within rugby league, and it spread out to working with some individuals in extreme sports like enduro racing, in downhill mountain biking, some football, still consult within rugby league now, alongside what I do. But again, the everyday athlete fits the elite level athlete right down to, I'm going to call them recreational athletes, but I still work with some very, very high level performers who they aren't an elite athlete. That's not their job. They've got other professions, but it's giving them the best sort of options and the best support that they need to excel in whatever they want to excel at training wise.
I can imagine it's quite a fulfilling job.
Incredibly so, yeah. A lot of these people, and there's some similar traits, like even high level business leaders or successful people again in their fields, very, very similar traits of discipline, structure, routine, accountability. You know, a lot of these people who might be running teams underneath them within their business, naturally that is essentially what we do, but also they've got a structure, they've got an accountability, they've got processes that they need to go through. And that's essentially what the training journey is. To me, within training, just like a lot of things, there isn't a destination. Like, and I know it's cliche talking about, but it's the journey, not the destination. Because I find in a lot of things, and again, this can be, I see it all the time in business terms, where they've got a destination in mind, they've got a goal in mind. And when they get there, it's like, one, it's either not fulfilling enough, or two, it's like, what do we do now? So, you know, a couple of examples, if you think about training, if someone just goes on a 12-week fat loss journey, in 12 weeks, they might get to where they want to get. What happens now? Do they continue on that? Do they go on a different path? Do they give up? So it's having that support network beyond that, but also as well, you know, again, in business terms, or even let's call like monetary terms, financial terms, I know heaps of people who work towards, I want to earn X so I can buy Y. They buy Y, and for 2, 3, 4 weeks, it's great. But then it's like, want something else. So actually, if you think about the journey and part of the process of the ups, the downs, you learn so much about yourself along the journey. And the biggest part of the journey is the consistency element. You know, not every day is going to be a PB day. And actually, I always try and preach, not just to myself, but to clients and anyone that I speak to really. If you judge yourself on the days that are harder, you will get far more out of them days that are harder and still showing up, still doing something on them days than on the days when it's easy, and not to rely on motivation. We can all do things when we're motivated, whether it be January 1st, whether it be summer. Motivation comes and goes. It isn't something that you can rely on, but actually having a structure and a process, and one kind of strapline I go off is process over thoughts and feelings, because there's going to be times where you don't really want to do it. But I ain't ever come across anyone or had a conversation with anyone who's regretted a training session they've done, or they've regretted a run they've done. They might not want to go in the first place, but I guarantee you come out of it in a better place than when you went in. So yeah, it's very much more about the journey, which is why purposely we will have with clients we work with goals throughout the year. But it's not a case of, right, once we get there, that's it. There's nothing else. It's like, right, we've hit that now. Where do we want to be next? But it's the journey to get towards there. And there's going to be some days where you've got 100% to give, and you give 100%. There's going to be some days where you've got 50% to give, and you can only give 50, but you've given 100% of whatever you had available that day. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's very applicable to, I've learned in the last few years, having kids. There's going to be times where you're a bit sleep deprived, kids might be sick, things aren't ideal. So you've got the ideal versus realistic. And I guess many ways that separates probably my program to other people's It is controlling the controllables and not expecting the ideal all the time. We don't live in an ideal world. We're all busy people. There's so many moving parts to life now. Again, whether it be the kids, sleep, travel, whatever it is, work commitments, family commitments. So it's now the realistic. What is realistic for you to do? Because if you can consistently repeat the realistic week in, week out, that will yield a far bigger result year round than trying to be ideal or trying to be 100% for a month and then falling off the wagon. So actually, what's realistic for you now? And then it's getting the most out of that realistic expectation, because sometimes the ideal, when people think it's great, when they're planning it, I can train 6 days a week, but actually if that's not sustainable.
If you can only do it for 2 weeks of the year, then it's no good, is it?
Yeah. And it's actually probably going to cause more issues, more psychologically than anything, because then you start beating yourself up that you can't get to the gym. I've missed this. There's no point. I may as well just not bother.
Yeah.
So actually going, and we have it a lot where people go, I can
Is
train.
that something you find quite common with people?
Very common, yeah. And it's working with the realistic, because what we do training wise, or what we invest time wise or monetary wise into our health and fitness, should be an asset to our life. It shouldn't be in replacement of something else. You know, if you turn around to someone and said, I train 7 days a week, 4 times a day, that's now unhealthy as well.
Yeah.
Because I bet if I asked you what your relationships were like, what your social life was like, you'd tell me they were non-existent. Yeah. So if we're talking about this, if we're talking about health as a whole, there's so much around the social side of it. You know, having a social life, having a family life, eating evening meals with you. Like, one of my biggest win in the last 12 months has been eating my evening meal with my kids and my wife. Because for years, either being in sport or being on the gym floor, I didn't have it, because to a certain degree, your time needs to serve the client. A lot of people finishing work at 5, 6 o'clock meant I was being in the gym 5, 6 o'clock. So I wasn't there for bath and bed. I wasn't there for evening meal. But that is one of the times in the day where we can sit down and can talk about your day. That's a social interaction. But that is also, that's just me being present, you know, but that to me is like my mental clarity, my sort of mental headspace is far superior by prioritizing them things, because you can have your cake and eat, you can have it all. People think you can't, you have to be all or nothing. Finding that balance to me is not a gift, because that sounds like it's just given, but is where is the sweet spot. Because if you're too far one way or the other, something else will miss out. And if that means that I won't necessarily excel in any one area, I'm fine with that. If that means that, you know, if I've got an event that I'm training for or whatever, and I have to train 4 hours a day for it, but if that meant I have to sacrifice family time or work time, then now I'll train for 2 hours. Because there's got to be a balance of it. And if someone said, oh yeah, but you're going to limit how well you'll do that, I'm fine with that.
You know that whatever you get out of that 2 hours is what you get out of it. And then 100%. You're okay with that.
100%, because I need to prioritize that time, because that time is just as important to me, if not more important. Because without them things, they all go hand in hand. So everything we do from a trading standpoint should be an asset. You know, so people think, I'm going to have to give up on my family time. I'm going to have to eat separate meals for my family. We're not. But I'm going to educate you on how you can fit them things into what we're doing. And education is the biggest thing. I say to everyone when they come into my program, it's not a dependency service.
What do you think is the most common problem or the common struggle that most clients have before they start working with you? When they jump on a call with you and say, this is what I'm struggling with, is there a common theme among that before you start working with people?
Yeah, with majority of people, it's structure.
Yeah.
Whether that be structure in the training or the nutrition or both. And as a result, they have an idea, because majority of people who do come into our program, they've already trained for a considerable amount of time anyway. But it's a struggle with the structure as to how to optimize all these facets. You know, they think, well, if I train 6 times a week, I then can't factor in my family time. And if I eat 5 meals like this, or if I have to stick to this nutrition plan, then I can't have my evening meal with my family. Or I can't have any socials on a weekend. And it's then breaking it down almost into phases and into days, essentially, and just going, well, actually, if your day looks like this, if the perfect or the ideal is 100%, we're going to work with 80% of that.
I remember you saying that once on a reel.
Yeah.
I remember it was ages ago, and you said, rather than doing 100%, 50% of the time, do 80%, 100% of the time.
100%.
Yeah.
Because, and people still look at that number and they think, that's a really big number. But if let's just from a nutrition standpoint, if 80% of your week is 5 to 6 days, majority of people work 5 days to where structure within them days, they're pretty cool with that and they go, yeah, actually I'm all right with that. Standard. Most people want a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. They want some normality on a weekend where they can enjoy things with the family. That fits into your 20%. Yeah. So what you do with that 20%, if you nail the 80% week in, week out, year round, what you do with that 20% is irrelevant. Don't get me wrong. Is there a...
There's a limit to it.
Yeah, and is there a minority? There is. So let's say someone is trying to step on a bodybuilding stage. There's a fair chance that you're probably going to have to be 100%. Or if someone's competing at the Olympics, you know, these 1% of athletes or individuals, I'd be lying if I said you didn't have to be 100% all in. Because if you're not, someone else is. So as a result, you're probably not going to win.
But then you're not. Well, there is obviously certain people you work with that are the 1%.
Yeah.
But the everyday athlete to you is the everyday person.
Yeah.
And those everyday people aren't stepping on stage or trying to do 100 meters at the Olympics.
Yeah.
So 80%, 100% of the time is realistic.
Yeah, and sustainable.
That was what I was going to say.
And sustainability. There's a nice little saying of compliance is the science.
Okay.
Which is basically, it's your adherence. So sustainability and your adherence. So if someone said to me, thinking of trying this for a little bit, how long do you think you'd try it for?
4 weeks.
A few weeks, don't bother.
Yeah.
If you can see yourself implementing habits, because we want to look at things as habitual, they should be structured, but they should be habits, then they should be sustainable long term. I have nothing against any, whether it be, I eat animal meat, I'm not a vegan or I'm not against any sort of different, whether you call it discipline or variation of certain things, providing it fits within what you want to do long term and it's habitual. Yeah. I've seen some people switch to a vegan diet for a month because they think it's going to be all singing, all dancing. And I've seen it flip side the other way around. If you don't see yourself doing something sustainable, or if I said to you now, the best nutrition plan for you is chicken and broccoli 5 times a day,
you're not going to stick to it.
Probably do it for a week, but right, okay. So if that's now not sustainable and your adherence can't adhere to that, that's now not the best for you. And this is why when people go, because people are always looking for the best, like what's the silver bullet? Because we want the flashy objects, we want the sparkly things, we want the, the 1%ers, but most people want the 1% and neglect the 99%. And if you look at your 99% of your fundamentals, your foundation, the basic things or world-class basics done savagely well, day in, day out, that will yield a far bigger result than the 1%ers. So many people chase the 1%ers. Now,
looking for the magic sauce, aren't they?
And there isn't one.
No.
And often at times, it can get a little bit boring, can get a little bit monotonous, it can get a bit routine.
It's like you said, it's habitual. And my mum won't mind me saying this because she's lost loads of weight now in a really healthy way.
Yeah.
But my mum is somebody that historically would go on these fad diets. She'd lose loads of weight and then she'd stop the diet and then she'd put the weight back on. And then I said, Mum, it's not about like doing something for 4 weeks, losing all this weight and then fucking it off for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
It's about doing something that you can stick to for 52 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
And she's basically just been exercising, eating better, but eating foods that she enjoys and just restricting calories a little bit less than she normally would.
Yeah.
And it's more sustainable. Like you said, she's doing 80% of the time for 100%. Sorry, what's the saying?
Yes, 80% of the time. Doing things 80%, 100% of the time.
That was it. So she's doing that, and it's like for me, like and this probably would sound boring to a lot of people, but I eat the same foods every day for the last 10 years. Greek yogurt, blueberries in the morning, bit of honey, chicken and rice with veg, prawn wrap before I go to bed, maybe some oats. But that for me is I make it taste good because I put seasoning on it, a bit of like low fat sauce or whatever else. But for me, it's convenient more than anything, and it's just easy, and I feel much better for it. And then at the weekend, a burger or pizza or whatever else, and for me, it's normal.
Yeah, and the thing is,
I know for a lot of people it's not, but
in this day and age, with anything, there's no lack of information.
No.
We've got Amazon, Google, all these things that are available now.
Yeah.
What most people lack is implementation. And often, if you Google something now, it'll bring up 1 million returns or 1 million, like, holy shit, like, where do I even start? Like, what is the best training program? Oh, it's this one. People are going, oh my God, like how many?
It's too much information.
Too much information. So we don't lack information, but majority of people, even when people go, I just don't know where to start somewhere. And that somewhere might be a 10-minute walk. It might be a 15-minute on the bike. It might be, but I guess the message with it all, it should be enjoyable. People still go down like the fitness route as, again, looking at a destination. Oh, if I can just get a stone off, like I'll be happy then. But why not make it enjoyable? Why not make that journey enjoyable with it? Do things you enjoy. If you don't like going to a gym, don't go to a gym. You know, if you like going out for hikes and walks or going out for a run, or you want to stay at home. I have one client who, she came into the program at 103 kilos. She now weighs 90 kilos. She hasn't been in a gym once. She trains from home. She's only had a pair of dumbbells for the last 3 weeks. She did bodyweight workouts. She likes online step classes. She does an online like YouTube step class that she likes to just join in at. And essentially most people need some sort of education on energy balance, calories in versus calories out, because naturally we know that if we, whatever your rough calorie maintenance is, if we eat more than that, no matter how clean or, you know, however you want to dress it up, the food is. Yeah,
you used a good analogy earlier about the McDonald's.
Yeah, so if I need 2,500 calories to maintain my current weight and I eat 3,000 in chicken and salad, I'm still going to gain weight no matter how healthy it is, versus if I eat a Big Mac that's 2,000 calories, I'm going to lose weight. Take health out of it. Let's not talk about the health side of it, because just eating Big Macs every day, you're not going to feel great, I can guarantee. But by the same token, if we're just talking from an energy balance standpoint, calories in versus calories out, if you eat more than you need, you will gain weight. If you eat less than you need, you will lose weight. Most people need an education on energy balance, first and foremost, then macronutrients and their importance and their role, so proteins, carbs and fats and what they do within your lifestyle, your how they support your fueling, how they support your recovery, your energy throughout the day. And most people need to move more. The minimum guidelines for a week is 150 minutes a week, which is 5 lots of 30 minutes. We have, I don't care, I have a lot of people go, I struggle for time. Everyone in the world can put 30 minutes a day aside. Do not care how busy you are. I've got 2 kids, but I don't care if you've got 10 kids. You can find 30 minutes. That might be, I use my mum as an example, and she won't mind me saying this either, but I remember years ago when I trained her for a time, and years ago she said, I ain't got time. I ain't got time to train. Right, but you work 8 till 5. You don't need to take work home with you. You don't need to prep work for the following day. What do you do in the other hours? I just love loads to do. Got tea to make, got ironing to do. Right, next breath, she'll tell me everything that's happening in Coronation Street, everything that's happening in Emmerdale. You have time, it's how you prioritise that time. And it sounds brutal and it sounds a little bit savage. If you want to do something enough, you will find the time for it. And again, that comes down to anything. Whether that means that someone gets up an hour earlier, goes to bed an hour later. I know we're going into digressing into a bit more sort of sleep hygiene and things there, but if you want something, you will find a way to do it. And again, as brutal as it sounds, if you don't, you won't. So if someone said to me, I just ain't got the time, you don't want what you want then. You don't want what you say you want enough to find that time within your day. And it does sound brutal saying it, but it's black and white.
Yeah.
If you want X, you have to do Y. Yeah. It won't just happen for you. So it may be that you get up an hour early. You know, I did once have years ago someone saying, you know, I just haven't got time to train in the morning because I'm straight up and straight out the door. So my response was, get up an hour earlier, you can find the time and then you can go out the door. And again, is that ideal or realistic? Majority of the time it's realistic for most people because they can find the time. And if that's the minimum, why do we just want to be doing minimum? If we can find there's 24 hours in a day, I'm sure we can find 30 minutes from somewhere. But again, a lot of people think it has to be all about training. Oh, well, how many times do I need to train? 5, 6, 7 days a week. We have some clients that train 2, 3 times a week for an hour at a time, because even if you train 7 days a week, an hour each, that would come across that you train a lot.
Yeah.
That's 7 hours out of 168 is a small number. So if that's a push, are you better training 3 or 4 times a week, which is now 3 to 4 hours, and prioritising what happens in the other hours? you know, in terms of your nutrition, your rest, your recovery, if we can optimize them, then naturally we can improve body composition, improve performance, improve your recovery. Because yes, it's a lot about training, but that's only one of the 5 pillars. So if we want to focus on the other things, like from your nutrition and what we're putting in our body, because one thing you hear all the time is you can't train a bad diet. You can if you do enough. And I say that is it a good thing?
Is it healthy?
Probably not, but you can. I know some high level athletes who have, when I say horrendous diets, they would be bad diets for the majority of us. They're a good diet for them because it's high calorie, because they've got high outputs. So as a result, they need to fuel them with high calories. So they can out-train a bad diet. Naturally, is it the healthiest option? Probably not. But most people probably need to prioritize what they do outside of the gym and outside of their training time, because that training time is a very small part of your day and your week. So I always say that if you train an hour a day for 7 days a week, in each day, there's still 23 other hours you can fuck that up.
Yeah.
It's a small number, and people hang the hat on that training time.
Just a quick one before we get back to the episode. We're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So if you love this podcast and you love what we're doing, then a quick and easy way to support it would be to hit the subscribe button. Thanks very much. Now let's get back to the episode.
What's your opinion on the, I hear a lot that it's 80% nutrition, 20% exercise. Is that a good statistic, or is that inaccurate, do you think?
Yeah, do you know what? And again, the answer I use for a majority of things, majority of questions that I always get asked, it depends. And it's such a vague answer, but it does depend.
Sure.
Because
there's a lot of variables to a lot of people.
So many variables. And me personally, I'll use me as an example. I enjoy training. Training has never ever been a chore for me. It is habitual. It's something I will do daily. I know some people don't function like that. And some people don't enjoy the training. They train from the physical benefits to get off it. But I know for a fact that my training percentage, if you're talking percentage there, is higher than most of the people's.
Sure.
So as a result, I wouldn't necessarily have to worry as much to find out about how accurate the nutrition going in is. Some people who don't train as much probably need to have more in the way of nutrition being a higher percentage and training being a low percentage. I think it depends also what sort of level athlete you are. Yeah. I would say around, say, if you're a high level athlete and wanting to be the best version of yourself, you need to be 100% of all. But we're talking about a 1% of there. Yeah. Majority of people could be 80% on that. 80% stat is probably applicable for, I know it doesn't equate to 100, but if you want to talk it that way, it's probably 50-50 because they go hand in hand, really.
If you've got somebody that's, I don't know, a CEO of a business and they're working 12-hour days and they can only fit in an hour or half an hour of exercise, then that might be more applicable to those kinds of people.
Yeah.
If they can only prioritise half an hour a day, then probably it's a high percentage of 80%, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then they're relying on their nutrition to stay within the realm of optimal.
Yeah. So I've got another example. I've got a client who really high level in terms of business, senior partner at a national company. Pressure is off the chain. He will factor his training no matter how, if I have to get up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Again, is it ideal for most? Probably not. But for him, he's like, I need to get that boxed off. But by the same token, he knows he's going to have 2 or 3 days a week where he's out with clients, whether it be alcohol involved, high levels of food involved, to where naturally the number would far surpass his calorie intake or his maintenance calorie intake. So as a result, he's very happy with going, well, I'm just going to eat way under on the other days then. So if his maintenance is 2,500 and on some days he's going to eat 4,000 because he's out and about, he's very content with going, well, if I want +5 this side, I've got to have -5 somewhere else. So he'll eat 1,500 calories on some other days. And some people will say, well, it's not sustainable. For him, it is. Because he knows that because it's not an option for him not to go out with a client. Because that could be another deal over the line. It could be more business. He's not going to miss out on the social side of it. But then actually, if you're talking about controlling the controllables and worrying more about what you can control versus what you can't, if he can't control that or influence that as much, he'll focus more on the days that he can control. So if he goes, well, if I just keep a higher protein day on that day, less carbs, less fats, and I pull my calories down to 1,500-1,600, I'm fine with that. Because most people then get concerned with energy balance on a 24-hour period. So they might go, oh, I should have eaten 2,500 And I've eaten 3,000, blown it, fucked it. Like I just won't bother. Write off. Just write the week off. Then try and look at it over a 2-day period, a 3-day period, or even a 7-day period, where, again, for easy maths, if you need 2,000 calories a day, over a week, that's 14,000. If you equate to your 14 over that week, and some of your days have been higher and some of your days have been lower, it balances itself out. And again, if we're talking about sustainability long term, that's probably a better method for most people.
Is that how you would monitor most of your clients
100%.
on a 7-day period?
Yeah.
So going back to the example of the guy that's in a high level, high pressure job,
Yeah.
how would you navigate his week? So if he, again, you tell me how you work it, obviously it's your profession, but would you jump on a call with him once a week and he would say, so this is coming up the following week, how do I navigate that? And then you would go from there and give him a plan for the following week.
Yeah, so they will generally check in once a week, but we have an unlimited support service anyway with me or some of the other coaches that we have work within us, to where if they need to reach out at any point, it's almost like an SOS or like an emergency, but we don't call it that because that sounds like you can only reach out to us if there's really an issue.
Yeah.
It could be they go, let's say the check-in is a Friday, and they go, right, next week, Monday I'm in London, Tuesday I'm back at home, so I'm all right. Wednesday I'm back at home, all right. Thursday I'm in Manchester, and Friday I'm in Leeds, and I've got these socials. Right, okay, so we've now got a lower calorie day, a medium calorie, almost like a traffic light system,
Sure.
a higher calorie day, and we're going to factor them in around. We know that them 3 social days are probably going to be more higher calorie days. They're more going to be red days. So actually on the days we're at home, we can either be green or amber days. And we know that over the course of that week, it's going to balance itself out. So he's then got the flexibility, because he might then, because it happens sometimes, drop me a message on a Monday, my meeting in London's been cancelled tomorrow, whoever I'm meeting's ill or whatever, so actually I'm at home. Right, that day can now come into there, we can push that food a little bit more. That day that was a green day could probably more of an amber day because you're doing less tomorrow, so we don't have to pull back as much on the other days.
Do you do that through WhatsApp or do you do it through an app?
That bit's generally through WhatsApp. Okay. So the check-in and everything we do is through an app. But
is that Kahunas?
Kahunas, yeah. But then the everything there that we have in our support chat is through WhatsApp.
Sure.
I live my life in WhatsApp anyway, so I see them more than I do anything else. So they've got that, I guess, support and option to go, how do I change that? And that's the same with training. They may, and again, if we're factoring in busy people, whether it be work, whether it be families, they may go, just a heads up, kids have been up all night, they've been sick. I normally train at 6 in the morning, but I can get there later on. What do you recommend? Let's get there later on, because your sleep's probably been broken up throughout the night. It's going to impact your recovery, probably going to impact your day. So let's factor it in later on. And actually, if you've got something from a setup at home, or you don't need to travel any further than you need to anyway to a gym, let's factor something in at home. And let's get a workout in at home where you can be around. Kids could be asleep, or actually once they've gone to bed, you can in fact, without thinking, you have to go back out. So let's say, because some people might have a bit of a setup at home and they might then go to a gym as well because they enjoy the two. They might have had a home session scheduled for the later on in the week. We might switch that around. Let's put that in there, or let's switch your rest day around. So if you need to be about, you need to be present, I'm not going to be the guy to go, no, I don't care if your kids are sick, mate. You have to go and find a gym. Unfortunately, some people do.
But that goes back to it's relative to the person that then makes it sustainable.
Of course it is, yeah.
And I guess that's why you're very good at what you do, because if you're then telling this guy that he can't have a rest day because his kid's been throwing up, then he's going to think, well, this is not realistic and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And then that's going to help him achieve.
It's the education as well to then because I guarantee that's going to happen again.
Yeah.
At some point in their life. They then know, I don't need to panic. I know I should have been training today, but 2 days' time is going to be a rest day.
Yeah.
That rest day can just come in today. And it's the education. So we tell people what they need to do, but we also educate them as to why they need to do it, because with the why, it creates trust and it creates buy-in. Everything that we do, no matter what industry, if you're in a service industry, everything is won and lost on relationships. If you have shit quality relationships with your clients or team members or whatever, your expectation of what you're going to get out of them is subpar, 100%. If they can't buy into you and vice versa, you aren't going to get the best out of the relationship. I've met some incredibly academic coaches over the years who have no social skills. So as a result, get nothing like what they need out of their athlete, and their athlete potential doesn't even get anywhere near reached because they can't build that relationship. I've met some academically, on paper, average coaches who get unbelievable results and get unbelievable buy-in from an athlete because of the relationships they build. So to me, it has to be built on a solid relationship first and foremost. But it's the education as to what you're doing, but why you're doing it. And I say it to everyone where we don't run a dependency service. I always say to people that our client lifespan is 6 to 9 months, their duration time inside the program. I've had people in the program for 5 years, but 6 to 9 months, I'm very confident that I always say to everyone, if you cannot come to me in that time after 6 to 9 months and say, I'm confident enough to have a crack at this on my own, I've let them down. And it's a funny one saying it, 'cause every time I say it to people, they go, that's a bit of a weird marketing tool, because naturally they would expect me to say, you'll be in here for the next 5 years. If people come out of it in 6 to 9 months and they say, I'm really confident to have a go at this on my own, I've done my job. I've educated them and I've left them in a better place than when they first came in. Because flip side, I've seen some people involved in some programs for 12 months, they come out of it and go, I have no idea where to start my own. That's now been a dependency service. There's been this is your program, why am I doing that? Don't worry about that, you don't need to know that, just do it.
Yeah, it's unethical as well, isn't it?
So it's the education process to what you're doing, but why you're doing it.
But I guess that's why more people would buy into it, because again, it's genuine and it's ethical. And again, that builds trust.
Yeah.
So if you're saying to someone, look, I'm going to be honest with you, you're probably not going to need me after 6 months.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to give you everything you need. They're going to think, fucking hell, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it's something I say within the mindset coaching that I do. I say a little bit less. I say around 12 weeks, because I'm more about habits and mindset. You know, there is nutrition and exercise that comes into it, but not on the same level as yourself. But I say, like, after 12 weeks, hopefully you won't need me.
Yeah.
Because you'll have built these sustainable habits and the mindset and the life systems that you need. Don't get me wrong, there's some people that stay with me because they just like the crack and the relationship that we've built. But again, it's the genuine side of it. It's like, if you build a dependency service, then it just doesn't come across as genuine.
Yeah, and one thing you find, again, is if it's your business, I get it. You're there to make money, of course you are. You're there to support your family. You're there to enjoy the finer things of life as well. But service first, service and person first. 100%, it has to be. Because naturally, even if I've been brutally honest, I'm not money oriented at all. Like, yes, I fully understand that money buys the finer things in life, and it buys freedom. It doesn't buy happiness, it buys freedom. So it gives you more time, gives you more freedom to do other things inside this world that we're in. But by the same token, it doesn't buy happiness, but as a result, if you focus on the service first and foremost, the finances will come off the back of it anyway, if that's people's result. Too many people, especially in this industry, focus on the finances, but they don't provide a service. So they may build things up really quick, but it falls faster. So it has to be person first and service first. And I guess that's sort of the morals from my background in professional sport, where every day you'll have a sit down round a table like this with every member of staff. This is every day. It's not just once a week, it's every day. And you go through a list of players and you go, what did he do yesterday? What does he need today? And it may be somewhat, again, you get it all the time where unfortunately it's the job, so they can't take too much time off. But we've had some players in a hospital room, especially through COVID, with the missus, who as soon as that baby's born, they're playing at the weekend. So they might be doing some sort of workout in a hospital room. Is it ideal? No. But for them, it's their job. So it's going, what does he need? Or he's not in today because his kids have been up all night. He's not in today because his missus has gone into hospital or whatever. So what does he need now? He's pulled up a little bit sore from yesterday. So actually, he's not going to do certain parts of today's training because we know that pulling back here, he can get a little bit more out of tomorrow. Often the best coaches, and definitely ones over the years I've worked with, anyone can push someone to do more. Just do a bit more, just do a bit more, do it more. The best ones I've always worked with know when to pull back. And it's knowing when to take one step back that allows you to take 2 steps forwards. Sometimes trying to take 2 steps forwards or 1 step forwards leads to 2 steps back if you're constantly pushing, because sometimes it's going, if someone comes in, 'cause we used to fill out a like a well-being and like a wellness every day.
Was that with Huddersfield?
That's with every team that I've worked with, to be fair.
Okay.
You'll always have some form of wellness markers or something within your day, because it's up to you to then prioritise what needs doing within the training. So I always look at my coaching now, and always did then as well, as your program's a flexible framework rather than a rigid concept. It has to be able to flex. because there's so many moving parts of it. And if you're so ego driven that goes, that's the plan, so we have to stick to it, sometimes that can be your own detriment. Because if a player's come in and his sleep score is down because he's been up all night with his kids, soreness is way up because it's pre-season, they've had a hard day yesterday, a hard day the day before, energy levels are low, recovery is generally hindered and very low. Is pushing him to the brink today going to be the best choice? Probably not. Probably going to be, well, actually, you know what? We're going to switch his day around. Tomorrow is going to be an easier day. Let's pull that to here, see where that tomorrow, and then we'll push again. So it's having feedback, and the best knowledge you will get will be feedback from your client or from your athlete, and that's where relationship comes into it. If you've got someone coming in going, I feel great, I feel absolutely mega, I'm ready to go again, we can push a bit more. If you're getting someone coming in going, I'm really, really struggling, right, let's just have a look at that. I know we should have been doing this, but we're going to pull it out. And we're actually going to put this in, which is going to improve your recovery. It still keeps some movement in, so it still gets some stimulus, but it's going to prioritise recovery to allow us tomorrow or the day after to go again. So without that relationship, that's where it breaks down. Because if you're a dictator that just turns into, you've got a bunch of yes men, yes men are coming in going, yeah, I feel great. Reality is you don't feel great. You just don't have the confidence enough to tell you. You could end up with a broken down athlete now. So the understanding, the education behind that is key.
Definitely. And that ties into as well the feeling optimal as a man is something that a lot of men aren't getting right.
Yeah.
And obviously we've spoke before about, you know, being optimal and the rates of, and I love what you said earlier about the pillars of your coaching. You know, you've got physical exercise, mental health, you've got rest, recovery, sleep, everything like that. But I feel like a lot of men these days, in my opinion, are struggling with their mental health, depression, anxiety, because they are missing the fundamentals of their being and they are not being optimal every single day.
Yeah.
So if, as a man, what do you think it takes and what do you think you need to feel optimal?
I think, again, that was the reason why we prioritised the 5 pillars, mainly. Anyone will benefit from improving physical health because naturally, if you improve your physical health, mental health will follow. And even if you go down the route of, and again, people are scared to say it, but even if you go down the route of, from a vanity standpoint, if you said, I just want to look better, if you look better, you feel better, I don't care who you are. And that's anyone who's going on a holiday to, if you look better, you naturally feel better. You've got more confidence, more self-esteem. You walk around with your chest up a little bit more. You're like, I look good. So as a result, I feel better mentally. But then as well, that comes as a byproduct. You can't, again, I spoke before about you can't out-train a bad diet, but generally speaking, most people can't because they'll never train enough to be able to out-train a bad diet. What you fuel yourself with day to day, from a performance standpoint, does directly impact mood, cognitive function. Again, if we're not getting enough sleep, naturally more gravitated towards, a lot of research behind it. If sleep quality isn't good, we're more gravitated towards shit food, junk food, because the body and brain recognises that.
What happens, sorry to interrupt, what happens, because again, sleep is something for me personally that I've really tried to prioritise, especially over the last 24 months. And it's something that I've done horrendously for years. And like, for example, I slept terrible last night and I can really feel it today. From your scientific expertise, what is it for the people listening? Why is it that sleep's so important? Not just for your physical health, but for your mental health as well.
So when you talk about recovery, and that's just not recovery from the gym, that is everything we do day to day, no matter what level, is taxing and it's fatiguing. Naturally, if you've had a busier day, you go to bed more tired. Even if you've not had a particularly busy day, you're still tired, you're still ready for sleep, because sleep is where the magic happens in terms of recovery. All cells regenerate, they recover, and as a result, ideally, if you get an optimal sleep, the deeper sleep that you enter, and there's different stages of sleep. So if we want to enter what we call REM sleep, which is where predominantly you dream more, rapid eye movement sleep, that is one of the sort of the third and fourth layer of sleep, which we'll get onto alcohol and things in a sec, but if you can enter them sleep cycles each night, now each sleep cycle is about 90 minutes. If you can get anywhere between 4 and 6 sleep cycles of deep sleep per night, your recovery is enhanced. So if you can get to the deeper sleep, then you'll be able to optimize your recovery much, much more.
How do you get there?
So creating sleep hygiene
Yeah.
or pre-bed routines helps. So for example, if you've come through the door at 10 p.m, super busy day, still on the phone to clients, scrolling through your phone, you're then going, right, I'm up at 5, I have to get to bed. Guaranteed you're not in an optimal position to be able to get into sleep. So ideally, and again, I'm talking ideal, not realistic, because we know it's not realistic all the time.
Sure.
In an ideal world, leading into bed, we've got within that last hour of bed some sort of pattern that we want to enter, and it may be reducing blue light, maybe not scrolling on your phone within an hour of bed, because that stimulates the brain. So naturally, for them, we then go to sleep off the back of that, we're in overdrive. We haven't had that time to rest and digest. We're still in fight or flight. Also, not just blue light, but if we're on social media, that's information and you're processing, constantly processing to where there is no off switch. Your body's ready because we've primed, especially in routine when it's darker to sleep, your body's getting into a prime position to sleep. Now you're pushing it away from that. So core temperature is another big thing. As we get towards the back half of the day, the body will cool down. Because when we go to sleep better in a cooler environment. So if we're then, again, that's why it's not always ideal versus realistic. If we're going to go and train late, really late, or we go and take a sauna really late, this now increases core temperature when the body's trying to do the opposite. So it's factoring these.
Would you advise a cold shower before bed? Or cold water?
Later on in the day, yeah. So generally speaking, if you're going to shower during the day, first thing in the morning, generally, and this is taken out because I know obviously the benefits and mental health benefits behind cold showering and cold plunging. But if you're talking from a hygiene standpoint, a warm shower, soap shower sort of thing. First thing or earlier in the day, warmer shower works better because your core temperature is rising. After sort of 2, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, core temperature starts cooling down. So if you're then going to start getting in the shower, ideally a cooler shower. And again, we talk ideal because if we're getting into the middle of winter and someone's coming in from a dog walk at 6 p.m. and going, I'm going to get a cold shower. Most people are opting for a cold shower. But generally speaking, if we're trying to control all these environment and all these factors, cooler shower towards the end of the day because we've got a cooler core temperature. So if we're trying to optimize sleep, creating a sustainable, because that's the key thing, bed hygiene routine, even reading before bed doesn't have the same stimulus that you would have on a blue light, and naturally can create more of a tiredness anyway to allow you to drift off.
After reading a book.
Yeah, right? And almost if you, and again, we're all busy people, but if you can optimize a work hygiene as well, where let's say 6, 7 p.m, you can go, right, that's me done for the day. That's me working done. So that last hour or two, I can just try and, I mean, it might be watching something on TV because TV doesn't have the same stimulus that blue light does, but just allowing yourself, just to wind down and just switch off a little bit.
Do you know how you just said that now? Like I slept horrendous last night. I couldn't get to sleep and I kept tossing and turning. And now you've just said all those things, I can pinpoint exactly why. So you often see me at the gym in the morning, first thing in the morning. Well, I was at a conference yesterday, so I didn't get the chance to go to the gym in the morning. I was there until late, and then I got home and I went for a run.
Yeah.
The first time I'd done a 5K outside for a while, blowing out my ass. And then I got back and then I did another like 2 or 3 hours work. So I didn't finish work till like 8:30.
Yeah.
And then I found the time then to go on TikTok and find a post that I wanted to post. Posted one, the engagement was crap, so I deleted it, posted another one. And then that was doing really well, so I was checking that. And then I watched a new series with Amy. And then I didn't go to bed till like 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So now you've said all those things, like my nervous system is awake. I'm probably very warm still from my run. I'm stimulated. So now you've said all those things, I can pinpoint exactly why I slept so shit last night.
So even incorporating things, and there is, when I say cheat codes, if you're talking again ideal versus really, let's say you'd have still had that day, but then you could have even put things like 15 to 20 minutes of like breath work in pre-bed.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking like we must meditate and we must have like all different music on and candles and later. And it doesn't have to be that
realistic.
way. Yeah. Can we just take ourselves even 15, 20 minutes before bed after you're scrolling and just go, you know what, for the next 15 minutes, phone goes away and I might lay there just with my eyes closed and I'm just going to do breath work. I'm going to slow everything down because again, if we've been in fight or flight, which is high energy and a lot of things we do day to day, and we can take ourselves to rest and digest, naturally you can feel your body just calming down a little bit. If we can prioritize just 10, 15 minutes just to regulate hormones, regulate sleep pattern, but also just that resting sort of hormones that we want off the back of it, just to be, not even to be present, but just to be like, right, I know I'm going to bed in the next sort of 10, 15 minutes. Just like you do some sort of warm-up sets in the gym to build yourself up, let's use it the opposite way around and implement some sort of breath work or just 10, 15 minutes of just downtime, just to go, let's just pull back a little bit and we're going the other way around. Yeah. Almost like a cool down, just to like, right, I'm entering that state. Even a cooler bedroom. People are afraid to go to bed with, oh God, it's cold in here. Not cold when you get in the sheet, but generally, if you've got a cooler bedroom, it's a better environment to be in.
What do you think people get wrong? So you've got your nutrition, your exercise, and your sleep, the three sort of main pillars, and obviously your recovery as well. What do you find is the one that people tend to get wrong the most?
Generally, a majority of it is hydration, which isn't really something that we've touched on. No. Most people, I don't know, the fad sort of nowadays is electrolytes, salts within what most people don't even drink enough water first and foremost. So again, it's that 99% and the 1%.
Yeah.
Don't worry about electrolytes if you're consuming 250 ml or half a pint of water a day. Let's get you to a pint. Let's get you to 2 pints. Let's get you to a couple of litres a day. Don't get me wrong. What's enough? Who knows? If you're more active and you're sweating more, naturally, you mean more fluids going in. Generally speaking, for the majority of people, a couple of litres a day is not just enough, but it's probably ideal as well. Quite an alarming stat that most people would never even take into consideration, that if you have a 2 to 3% dehydration, that can affect daily performance by up to 20%.
Wow.
And that's not just going out for a run performance, that's you being able to present, be on your computer, be on calls, and being able to cognitively function better. 20% is a fifth of it's a big, big chunk to give away for a 2 to 3% dehydration. Because people go, I'm only 2% dehydrated, it's not massive. But the implications that it can have off the back of it can be huge. Yeah. Then you put that into a sporting context, and that can be a difference between winning and losing. So hydration first and foremost, people get nowhere near. I know some people might have a glass of water all day, but they'll have 8 coffees. And again,
caffeine dehydrated.
Generally speaking, yeah. Is it the end of the world? No, because with 8 coffees, you are consuming liquid as well. It's not like you're just going, there's a scoop of caffeine, there's a scoop of caffeine. Pure caffeine on its own is naturally, it's a diuretic. So in other words, you're going to flush out more than what you're actually putting in. But if you put in a cup in every time, which might be 150, 200 mils, you're still putting liquid in with that. But generally speaking, it's a diuretic. And stimulants as well, if we're talking about throughout the day, are going to promote a spike and a crash and a spike and a crash. People get dependent on them. You know, they'll get to midway through the day and go, oh God, I need a coffee. I need another coffee or something. But naturally, that's a dependency. Generally, we could fix that through increasing your nutritional habits and just being more hydrated throughout the day.
So what would your opinion be then? So for example, just because it's easy. Last night, I've had a terrible night's sleep. This morning, I've woke up a little bit stressed, a bit grouchy. And then I've just necked a Monster because I know that I've got 2 podcasts this afternoon and I've got the rest of the day to function, in my opinion, optimally.
Yeah.
If I was to approach you before I took the Monster, what would your advice have been to feel optimal for the rest of the day?
Generally speaking, was it the first thing you put in?
No, so it was, I probably woke up about 7:30, again later than I normally did because of how I slept. I probably had a coffee about 8:30.
Yeah.
And I know the science behind when you ingest caffeine. It was literally just before I met you that I had the Monster.
So generally speaking, when you say everything in moderation, but we can also do things in a sequence as well. So no matter how tired you feel when you first get up, can we delay your caffeine intake and prioritise hydration first and foremost? So generally speaking, we're always dehydrated first thing in the morning. Everyone is, because even if you've had a really poor night's sleep and you've only got 5 hours in, I never go 5 hours out drinking fluid. I never go 3 hours out drinking fluid.
So do you drink during the night then when you wake?
So if I wake, I do generally wake up in the night and I will have I always have a bottle of water beside me, but I will have but generally speaking, let's say I've slept all the way through and I've only got 5 hours, which isn't a particularly long time. That's still a long time to not consume fluids. So my first go-to would always be some sort of water with electrolytes, ideally.
So I did do that. So that is part of my morning routine. Regardless, the first thing that I do is I have a glass of water, probably a bit larger than that, with a a teaspoon of electrolytes,
Yeah.
and a bit of creatine.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I have when I wake up.
Yeah, so generally speaking, like you've already ticked a massive win for the day
Yeah.
anyway. You've started that hydration process. And people look at caffeine like it's a bad thing. Like caffeine is not a bad thing. Overconsumption, don't know, it's not necessarily going to lead to anything
Drastic.
health-wise. Overconsumption just leads to a dependency. It just leads to, oh, I feel all right off the back of that. A couple of hours later, have another crash, go, I need to feel what I felt like this morning, so have another one. And generally speaking, we will all gravitate towards caffeine and things when we're more tired. But if we can still start that day on a positive note from a hydration standpoint with electrolytes, generally speaking, it's not like you're going to have like 5 months a day, like every day.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't ever be too concerned in that. It's like when people talk to me about, artificial sweeteners, or they talk about, well, you should have fizzy drinks. Generally speaking, like there's so many 0-calorie options. Now, I always say don't drink your calories no matter what like the goal is. Like generally speaking, I'd rather enjoy it through food. But from a fizzy drink standpoint, people again think, oh God, I can't have that. But that again, sustainable. Are you never going to have a fizzy drink again?
Yeah.
I will have probably 1 0-calorie fizzy drink a day.
Yeah, I love Coke Zero.
Yeah. So I'll have one a day. Like if we talk that, the minute percentage of what difference that will
What
make.
is it that, and I saw it, James Smith spoke about it, and he did a video, not like people were slating the compounding Coke Zero, saying that it's really bad for you. And then, I can't remember, you'll know more than me, but it was a compounding Coke Zero, and they were saying you're better off drinking normal Coke than Coke Zero because of the specific compound. It's like
aspartame.
Yeah, that was it, yeah. And then he was saying, but like for that compound to affect you in the way that these guys are talking about, you'd have to consume like 1,000 litres of Coke Zero a day.
Yeah.
Which is like anything over consumption is going to be bad for you.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, aspartame is basically a sweetener. It's a sweetener.
Yeah.
It's an artificial sweetener. And to me, if we're getting so caught up on the finite of that, like most people, even if they drink 1 Coke Zero a day, even 2, 3 a day, probably need to focus on their other nutritional habits as well. If we're so concerned with that, there's probably a bigger picture to. Most people need to address way other issues far sooner than we start talking about aspartame from a natural sweetener. And to be fair, since that, because there was years ago they were talking about aspartame being linked with cancer, and they've all been debunked since. They've all been like, there is no risk. Again, there's a risk of everything. If I had 25 cups of coffee a day long term, it's probably not going to be great for me. Plus,
what is your caffeine consumption? Been as active as you are?
I'll probably do three coffees a day.
Yeah. Do you ever take pre-workouts?
Every now and again, yeah. And again, I'm a bit more methodical with the contents of it. So I wouldn't just go, oh, there's a pre-workout, let's bang that in.
You'd analyse what's
I'd have a look at what's inside it, because again, generally speaking, if someone's having a pre-workout or something like a coffee around training, it's performance enhancing. So we know that research shows 250 milligrams of caffeine in one dose, 30 to 45 minutes prior to physical exercise, is performance enhancing. So if something, a pre-workout, for example, was 100 milligrams, I'm probably going, is it really worth it taking? Am I that bothered? Versus something that's now 600 milligrams, because people go, oh, it's got loads of caffeine, that's going to be even better for you. There's no further benefit of having more than, other than that, there's no further benefit of having more than 250 milligrams a day.
And what's the ABE All Black Everything? That seems to be the more popular one.
Yeah.
How much? You might not.
That's 250.
Is that 250? Because I remember having that, and it absolutely blew my head off.
So the other thing what blew your head off, the tingling sensation.
No, like I got dependent on pre-workout.
Yeah.
Long time ago, so I just cut it out completely. I was like, if I can't train without a pre-workout, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And it was like, this was when I first started training at like 6 a.m. just to fit my schedule. And I'd have the pre-workout, I'd dry scoop it on the way to the gym, and I'd be buzzing. And then, but then I got dependent on it, and I was like, I need to be able to go to the gym at 6 a.m. without this compound or whatever you want to call it. And then I remember I'd not taken it for ages, and I was training legs with someone on a Saturday, and he was a beast. And I'm like, I need to keep up with this guy. I think it was Greg actually.
Yeah.
And and then I had it, and I was like, Jesus Christ! I felt like it was.
Couple of things there. If you've had it first thing in the morning, generally speaking, caffeine, you're more caffeine sensitive when there's nothing in the body.
Okay.
So again, if you've not had any food with it, or it naturally it's going to have more of an effect. Because try and look at anything that's already in the stomach is a bit like a sponge.
Sure.
If there's nothing there is no sponge, so it's not going to get soaked up by anything. So as a result, you're always going to get hit a little bit more by it. But then it comes into like caffeine. Some people are more caffeine sensitive than others. But generally speaking, if you consume it a lot, when you want it to work, it won't, because naturally the body doesn't process it the same. Yeah. So if you're constantly having it, it's a bit like if you have one coffee in the morning, you go, right, just give me a little bit of what I need, and go, bah, 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 work block gets bashed out. Later on that day, if you want another 2 or 3 like that, they don't hit you the same.
No.
Because naturally the body just goes, yes, another, and you just become not just dependent, but also as well, you become more resistant to the caffeine.
Okay.
Whereas it's a bit like when people take paracetamol, ibuprofen, naturally if we take them all the time, when you really want it to work, it's not really going to work. So as a result, if we do want it to work, or if you are a professional athlete or someone who needs to prioritize a certain day where you go, I want the benefits of that, let's limit the other intake on the other days. Because if I want to be a bit more sensitive to it, to where it's going to have more of an impact, then I know that I can't just take things every day and it's going to have the same effect. So if game day is a Saturday, you may limit the amount of caffeine you have throughout the week so that you can then have that benefit of the caffeine leading up to it. But generally speaking, sport's a massive culture for coffee especially. It's really, really sociable. So like pre-training, post-training, coffee clubs on. Pre-game, coffee clubs on. So a lot of people in them environments don't necessarily take it for a performance enhancer, but some people in, let's say, Olympic sports or where things are really fine-tuned, they might have it limited. They might just say, I don't want you to take any sort of caffeine this next few days because we know that we're either going to have some sort of caffeine gel or something prior to performance and we want the benefits of that. The other thing to that is, and I put a post like this the other week, it takes about 45 minutes for that to actually kick in.
Caffeine?
Yeah.
Right.
So you see some, especially younger generation now,
drinking it in the gym.
Red Bull and Monster in the gym.
Yeah. You
They
see
have
them
a great drive
around
home.
doing the sets. And
Drive home's going to be great because by the time by the time it's peaked,
Yeah.
they then got all the, again, if you have pre-workout literally as you're walking through the gym door, then naturally it's probably going to peak in about 40, 45 minutes. Not to say you're not going to get something leading up to it, but it's going to be at its most in about 45 minutes. So,
what's your opinion on the caffeine time when you restrict going back to sleep and optimal sleep? What's the science behind, like, for example, if I drink a pre-workout at 12 o'clock, does that give me enough time then before I go to bed at 10?
Yes, generally speaking, this one thing I was going to touch on before when we were on about the sleep hygiene, we know that, or I say we know, research shows that for 5 hours after consumption, even on hour 5, you will still have half of that caffeine content in the system.
Right.
So if you add, let's say, and I've been guilty of this, if I go out for a meal, for example, I might have a double espresso after a meal. Don't know why, I don't know, because I'd never have one after my tea. But you may just like have
I like a coffee
go out
after
for
a
an
meal.
Italian or something, and you have a double espresso.
I enjoy that.
Double espresso, generally speaking, again, it depends where you get it from, but it might have 150 milligrams of caffeine. But even if you consume that at 6 p.m, by the time you go to bed, half of that's still going to be in the blood. So that will also limit how deep a sleep you can get to because you've still got stimulant in there, and caffeine's still in the system. So generally speaking, as a decent cut-off time, trying to avoid sort of post 3 p.m. would be a decent guide for the majority of people. Some people can't. Some people are quite caffeine sensitive to where if they go 1 or 2 p.m, they're like, I can still feel it when I go to bed. Until I knew that research up to a few years ago, I very easily have a coffee at 7 p.m. and not be bothered. Went through a stage with, when we had our second, so our eldest is 4, our youngest is 2, went through a stage where, because the youngest was in bed with us as they are when they're first born, or in the bedroom with us, the eldest couldn't really get his head around it. So he'd be getting up multiple times a night to where I'd be having 3 hours sleep, getting into the gym with clients from 6 and being in the gym until 9 p.m. I'd be doing a Monster at 7 p.m. just to get through a couple of clients. And that for me was like survival instinct. I would just be like, I just need, a bit what you're talking about there, I just need to get through these. Because again, I would rather I suffered in terms of my sleep, but from a service standpoint, they still got what they needed. So that 8 p.m. client's still coming in, I'm still giving them everything like I was the 6 a.m. client. I was a bit like, I'll just deal with myself after. But then you start going long term, one, how sustainable is this? But how healthy is this as well? Because naturally it's a knock-on effect. It becomes a vicious cycle. I then have that caffeine at 7, 8 p.m. I then can't get, I'm crashed at 9 and I get home, but I can't go to bed at 10 because but then I know the little one's going to be up at 1. So, and it's that vicious cycle. So I'm just trying to break that.
But it was a very sleep deprived time.
Yeah. From like kind of October to January, there was there was times where I'd be training a client. I was actually talking about this to a missus the other week. I'd be talking like I'm to you now. We've all seen it in them films where people are talking and the mouth's moving, but just nothing's going in. I'm just looking straight through them, just thinking, I have no idea what you're talking about. But it was in my mind, it was like, so long as I can give them everything they need, that was that service first versus everything else. But generally speaking, the half-life of that caffeine will still be in the system up to 5 hours after. Yeah. So for majority of people, like kind of having like a 3 p.m. cut-off time is a decent guide, even on them days where you're going, I'm kind of really tired. Yeah. Because actually, if you are really tired, you almost want to be thinking about going, how can I optimize next night's sleep? I can't worry about last night's because it's gone. So how can I get into, rather than thinking, let's just get through the day on as much caffeine as possible, but then my next night's going to be poor as well. How can I influence my next night? A bit like training to one degree, like especially people who train a lot, whenever you finish a session, this is why nutrition becomes so important as well. You're now recovering from that session and you're fueling for next session. Rather than thinking, oh, it's done now, it doesn't matter, I can just go and consume what I want. Again, 20% of the time we know we can and we're absolutely fine with it. But generally speaking, you're recovering from what you've just done, but now we're trying to fuel what's coming up. So even on them days where you are tired, sometimes back into the day, rather than thinking, let's just get through the day, how can I optimize getting a better night's sleep tonight, which actually improves tomorrow? And this is where majority of people, especially business leaders and high level people, some CEOs and execs that we work with, just plow through days and they'll still be going at 10, 11 o'clock at night, fueled on caffeine, but then feel like shit the following day. And it's that constant vicious cycle of, because they think, if I break this routine, my performance can be worse. All these things are going to go downhill because I perform well already, until they do it. And then they realize how much of a benefit it's had just by eating better, by being more hydrated, limiting caffeine later on, having a sleep routine. Even things like being consistent with your bed routine. You know, just like if you go to bed at 10, within sort of half an hour, try and make it 10 like every night. Because we are creatures of habit and respond better when things are done with structure and routine. So if we go to bed at 10, half 10 still be absolutely sound, but don't go 10, 12, 11, 9, half 10, because the body's going, well, when do you want me to settle down? Yeah. Because naturally, if you've got these routines in place that from sort of 9 p.m. onwards, you're at least looking at winding down, you will enter a sleep pattern much easier over time. And again, it's just like training. You don't get the benefit. If you train today, you don't get the benefits tomorrow. They become like next week, the week after that. And it's the same with these. It's the compound effect. People think, oh, one night is going to make a difference. Yeah, but one night becomes 2 nights, and 2 nights becomes 4, and that becomes a week and a month. Don't underestimate the compounding effects of daily wins. People think that little things don't go a long way. And again, just an analogy behind that, 10,000 steps a day. If you do 10,000 steps a day, that's the equivalent of 70 marathons a year.
Wow.
People wouldn't even think that. People do 10,000. Majority of people, some might see it as a bit unrealistic. I generally use a guide of 8 to 10, depending on how active someone is. If someone's currently doing 2,000, you might go, right, let's aim for 5, because 10 right now is probably not realistic for you. But if someone does 9, can we consistently make 10? And again, people go, I do 10,000 steps a day, but it's just a given. Like, I just can't do it. 70 marathons a year. No one would ever dream about doing 70 marathons a year. A majority of people wouldn't anyway. No. But again, don't underestimate the compounding effects that they have over not just your health, but longevity. Yeah.
What would be your, so again, going back to being optimal, especially as a man with the devastating statistics around depression and suicide, and again, just for the people listening, if there is men listening to this and you know they're just wanting to feel the best version of themselves, they're wanting to feel optimal, as a professional in your field, you know, with the expertise and the knowledge that you have around exercise, nutrition, sleep, recovery, if you could just give somebody 5 tips to feel optimal on a day-to-day basis, what would they be?
Move daily, some sort of exercise daily. Yeah. Natural daylight. And again, it doesn't have to be sunlight. People think, oh, like there's no sun. natural daylight. So people don't underestimate as well. There is a stat, and I will find it, and I'll send it over when I do find it, but it is about the higher percentage of mental health improvement being around natural environments, being around nature in daylight.
Okay.
But we also know that daylight improves sleep pattern, which improves mental health as a result, because you recover better. So I would say move daily, natural daylight. In terms of your nutrition, again, everyone's different. That's why we work obviously with individuals. Generally speaking, higher protein diets from a recovery standpoint and improving overall body composition, because naturally, again, if we look better, then we feel better as a result, but that will aid recovery. From a nutrition standpoint, again, don't be scared of carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are number one fuel for body and brain. And again, we know that things like depression and mental illnesses, naturally we can improve them by fueling the brain better, because we've got more clarity in what we're doing, and naturally mood swings from low energy first and foremost, then naturally we can fuel that through carbohydrate. Everyone's levels are going to be different, purely because if someone is training multiple times a day, they're going to need far more. There's a lot of research around, obviously, fats for fuel, and I'm never against that. But if we're talking about the number one readily available energy source, it is carbohydrates, and always will be, because it digests quicker and it's easier release and faster release into the body. So yes, if you're active more, you're going to consume more. If you're not as active, you're going to consume less. Just going back to training there, from a mental health standpoint as well, and depression, there's been a lot of links with hormones like testosterone and low testosterone linked with depression. Exercise alone, without even talking about testosterone replacements, exercise alone improves and increases testosterone. So if that's linked with depression and other mental health or ill health related issues, then daily exercise from a testosterone standpoint. Sleep, because again, without it, we can't recover, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if we can't optimize that, and hydration being number one as well. Other things like, and again, you can talk to your blue in the face about things like alcohol consumption.
That was going to be my next question. What's your opinion on alcohol and alcohol consumption?
Alcohol's the only drug that if you don't take it, people wonder why. What? Not having a drink? Why not having a drink? Whereas if that was, you not have a line of cocaine, why not have it? It's not even a thing. It's not even a question. But varied views on alcohol, because I'm not teetotal, but I will probably drink 3 or 4 times a year. And the reason I'm not teetotal is because every now and again I will enjoy a couple of beers, and I don't mind that at all. Generally speaking, it's one of the biggest depressants available to us, because naturally no one ever feels great the following morning once they've had some drink.
No.
So as a result, and it's been linked with that, instead of an antidepressant, it's one of the biggest depressants we can consume.
Yeah.
From a physical and mental health standpoint, it impacts recovery and massively impacts your sleep.
Yeah.
So consuming, especially excess amounts of alcohol, and how it affects your sleep, it's very, very similar to sleeping tablets. You will never, ever enter a very deep sleep. So how many times, and I've definitely been there, years gone by, you've gone to bed drunk and you woke up the following morning, you think you've had 8 hours and you feel awful. You just think, like, I am tired. Like, why am I tired? If we talk about sleep and having layers to sleep, and if we're talking about layer 3 and 4 being your deeper sleep, but we can only enter level 1, that's now not a deep sleep. It's almost like a state of unconsciousness. So as a result, recovery is impaired, hydration's impaired, and we know that loss of hydration or being dehydrated by 2 to 3% impacts performance by 20. So if now we're sleep deprived, we're now not hydrated. So if we weren't performance hindered by sleep, we're now performance hindered by lack of hydration. We also know that if we've not got much energy, we are more attracted to shit foods because the body recognizes an immediate source of energy. You know, if it's sugary, fatty, whatever, we know it's high calorie, high energy, so the body's going to gravitate more towards it. So now we make worse choices. Now, long term, if that's done day in, day out or week in, week out, we're probably going to lead to some sort of unwanted weight gain and fat gain, which makes day-to-day tasks harder, cognitive functions harder. It's the knock-on effect. So generally speaking, alcohol consumption in absolute moderation is okay. But like anything else, if it's done in excess, can now have such a knock-on effect to everything else. You know, if you drink on a Saturday night, wake up Sunday still tired, dehydrated, you've now made shit food choices, which has now led to a shit night's sleep Sunday night. You don't really want to go train Monday. It's now Tuesday, you're still feeling a little bit hungover. It's now Wednesday, I'll start next Monday. Now you've missed that. You saw that cycle that we've now broken, that performance hamster wheel, if you like, and not just performance from a training standpoint. You've gone to work Monday and Tuesday, you can't wait for them to get over with because you just can't even see what you're doing properly. Your cognitive functions are being impaired as a result. Even from a weight gain standpoint, just the education behind that, there's not enough education around alcohol itself. So people look at alcohol or wine and go, there's loads of carbs in it. Not only is there carbohydrates in it, again, which aren't the devil by any means, but alcohol itself as units also contains calories. So we know that
500 calories in a pint of lager. Is it something like
yeah, some is, yeah. Some are less. Obviously, there's a lot of different options available now. But we know that for 1 gram of protein, there's 4 calories. Same for carbohydrate.
that? 9 in fat.
9 in fats, there's 7 in alcohol. So if you're
right. I
consuming
didn't know that.
wine or other alcohol,
Right.
not only might you have, let's just say, 30 grams of carbohydrate, depending on how many alcohol units are in that, we've now got another 7 calories per alcohol unit.
Wow.
So it's now a compound effect on top of that. You know, it's not just the carbs, it's then like you're going to get double that from the alcohol itself. People don't appreciate that. But then just like the zero drinks, a lot of people consume alcohol as a social. And there's so many more switching now to zero because it's not the alcohol that keeps them social, it's having the beverage in the hand that keeps them social. They want it, they can go to a pub or a bar, they can have a zero Heineken, zero Guinness, whatever, and still feel sociable. They're not actually bothered for the high that you get off the alcohol. They just want to feel sociable because once upon a time, people would rather not go out and be sociable because they don't want to drink, so they just didn't go out. But now, for one benefit of not consuming alcohol, they now miss out on another benefit of a social environment. Because social environment, we know as well from a mental health standpoint,
it's important.
it's a massive part. You know, COVID was one of the biggest things of that. So many people suffering COVID because we value community and we value connection. And you get connection from talking to people and being around people. So people lost that. And as a result, people's mental health took a nosedive. So again, this is the value of sort of the program we do as well is I'm encouraging people to have social occasions. And it's the education around the choices that you can then make in a social occasion. Because people go, I can't go out for beers on a Sunday or on Saturday because if I go out for beers, that means I'm having a burger, it means I'm doing this, it means Monday's going to be shit, it means it doesn't. You could go out and you could have a couple of beers, you can make a decent food choice when you're out there, and Sunday could be a normal day, you could get up and train, so it's the education as to you can still go out,
navigate that way?
but let's navigate around that.
So just to recap and just to finish the episode, I can see why you're very good at what you do, and I can see why you're helping a lot of people. The knowledge and the expertise that you've got around how to be optimal as a man is fascinating. To be fair, it's been really good listening to everything that you've been saying. I'm somebody that thinks I know a little bit about nutrition and exercise, but I've definitely learned a lot listening to you. So thank you for that.
No, appreciate it.
But again, just to reiterate, just to finish off the conversation on the podcast, again, just for men listening, just to really help men that are struggling, that just want to feel optimal, just quick fire the different things that you've just spoke about. So
move daily. It doesn't have to be in the gym. It can be going for a walk. It can be some sort of exercise, running, walking, resistance training. Just digress from there. We know from a longevity standpoint as well, resistance training, if we're stronger as we get older, we can flourish in life a lot more because ideally, if we want to live for a long time, we want to be able to active for a long time. So that's directly linked to your strength. So including some sort of resistance training 3-4 times a week. Daily movement though, whether that be running, walking or lifting. Natural daylight, making sure that even if it's pissing down outside, you don't want to go outside. Get outside, just get moving, get some sort of natural daylight in there. Try and create some sort of sleep routine. So whether it be an hour before bed, just reducing blue light exposure, might be some sort of breath work, it might be some sort of cool shower, cool environment in your bedroom so it allows you to not just get to sleep, but stay asleep. Optimizing your hydration and in turn with that limiting alcohol, because again, alcohol becomes not only one of the worst depressants, but also a dependency. People feel a bit of a high off the back of alcohol and then naturally that leads to another. So hydration and increasing your hydration. And then, even though everyone is different, maintain a healthy, in quotes, nutritional intake. 80% of what you consume from whole, unprocessed foods generally going to be more healthier for you. Yes, there's the intricacies of energy balance and how much for you is very individual. So you can never say so everyone must eat this amount.
Yeah.
But a spread of protein, carbs, and fats, but still having 20% of what you do, something you enjoy. Because if it's not sustainable and you can't adhere to it long term, you're not even going to get a long-term result. And we're not just planning for now, we're planning for 10, 20, 30 years down the line. So making sure that 8% of what you do is from wholesome, whole foods and nutrition, 20% still making sure you consume foods you enjoy with your family and in social environments with friends.
Perfect. Josh, it's been incredible talking to you.
Mate,
thanks so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom, all your knowledge, all your expertise. I'm sure anybody listening to this is it's going to help them massively, especially the 5 tips that you've just given to feel optimal. So thanks again for coming on, mate.
Wicked. Thanks for having me. Top man.
Cheers, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thank
Thanks,
you.
mate.